Hello, friend. Well, once OCD enters your life, you understand the power of thoughts. Obsessions, the O in OCD, are nothing more than thoughts. They're sentences in the brain. And these thoughts can erode lives. In today's podcast, we'll talk about why thoughts are so important, where your thoughts come from, and how your thoughts create the results in your life, with or without OCD. Welcome to the Free Me from OCD podcast. We're here to offer educational resources, coaching, and community support to help you say yes to your life by saying no to OCD. I'm Dr. Vicki Rackner, your podcast host and OCD coach. I call on my experience as the mother of a son diagnosed with OCD when he was in college, surgeon, and certified life coach to help you get in the driver's seat of your life. My vision is to help you move towards a future in which OCD is nothing more than the background noise of your full life. This information is intended as an adjunct and not a substitute for therapy. So let's dive in. You have thoughts all the time. You have thoughts about the weather, the status of your health, and who you want to see as president. You have thoughts about the person at the store who held the door for you when your hands were full, and the person who cut you off in traffic on the way home from the store. You have thoughts about the praise you get from your boss and the snarky comment from your coworker, as well as your uncle's conviction that the world is flat. You have thoughts about how the world should work and what people should say or do. You even have thoughts about your thoughts. Your thoughts are powerful. You know this from your experience with OCD. It's through my family's experience with OCD that I really came to understand and appreciate the power of thoughts. In fact, it's my experience that inspired me to invest in the skills to help people think on purpose to get what they want. And I share these ideas and skills with my physician clients, whom I coach. All right, so one of the first questions that someone with OCD asks me is, how do I make the obsessive thoughts stop? Adam described his experience with his first obsessions and compulsions. One day on his drive to work, Adam thought, maybe I left the stove on at the house and wow, the house could burn down. Then he had a thought about this thought. He said to himself, well, that's a valid concern. I can be so absent-minded as I rush out the door in the morning, I could see myself leaving the stove on after I made my coffee. So Adam turned the car around and headed for home, where he found that the stove was off. The next week, he had the same thought. I could have left the stove on and the house could burn down. Then he remembered that the family went out to dinner the night before, so they didn't even cook dinner. But then he had another thought. But wait, my wife made tea to drink with her evening bath. Maybe she forgot to turn the stove off. So he turned the car around and headed home, where he found the stove off. A few days later, the scene repeated. He went back home, all was well. So on his second attempt that day to drive to work, he had another thought. Maybe when you checked, you missed the burner that's still on. Now he headed back home for the second time. The leaving and checking rituals all began with the thought, I could have left the stove on, and unless I take action, the house could burn down. Then he had a thought about that thought. I need to pay attention to this truth bomb my brain just offered. It is telling me about a valid threat that warrants action. Adam knows that in the absence of these thoughts, he would not experience the anxiety about the possibility that his house would burn down. Without these thoughts, he would be freed from the increasingly elaborate and time-consuming leaving and checking rituals. So in Adam's mind, no obsessive thoughts translates to no anxiety and no need to take action. Back to a normal life. So OCD is a case that illustrates the ways of all human brains. And this is how they work. Our senses bring information about what's happening in the outside world. And then our brains, which are meaning-making machines, make sense of this information. And these are your thoughts. So different thoughts create different feelings. And when you think about it, feelings are nothing more than sensations you experience in your body that offer information about what's going on in your inner world. So your feelings drive your actions, and your actions create the results you experience in life. So your thoughts create your life results. I know that this sounds like a woo-woo spiritual idea, but this is a simple statement of the way that humans' brain works, with or without OCD. So right now I'm watching the Olympics, and while it's amazing to watch these athletic performances, I'm fascinated by the stories behind the performances. So, as you know, both Simone Biles and Suni Lee overcame great health challenges to compete as gymnasts in the 2024 Olympics. Simone's last Olympics was set back by the twisties, where she didn't know where her body was in space. And competing would represent a true danger to her, so she withdrew. Suni Lee overcame 2 different disorders associated with her kidneys. Now, you could listen to these stories and think, wow, how inspiring. If these athletes overcame these profound health setbacks, maybe I could overcome smaller adversities in my life and not give up on my goals and dreams. That thought might make you feel optimistic. And when you're optimistic, you look around for evidence that other people move forward in the face of setbacks too. This optimism could help you get back to the things that you found challenging. You would act more courageously, and that would help you move closer to your goals. Let's say somebody else hears these stories and thinks, well, athletes like Simone Biles and Suni Lee are just made of different protoplasm than we normal people. They're certainly different than I am. I can't twist and turn like they can, and I can't bounce back from adversity like they can. That thought makes this person feel resigned to their reality. They don't act courageously. They give up on their dreams because they've tried before and they've been disappointed. So the way the brain works creates a situation in which the thought creates the feeling, which leads to action that essentially creates the experience that the thoughts predict. So thoughts are powerful. This begs the question, where do they come from, and how and why do we think them? All right, well, thoughts come from several different places, and I'd really like to lay that out for you today. First, our biology shapes our thoughts. So, safety-related thoughts often happen below the level of conscious thought. You might have been with somebody and gotten a funny feeling. Maybe the hairs on the back of your neck rose. You might not have consciously thought, I'm not safe with this person. You might have just felt the urge to get away. So this is part of our biologic imperative to identify and escape danger. It's wired into us. So let's get back to Adam, who described his OCD story. He said, I've always had weird thoughts pop into my head. Before I had OCD, I would think, that's a weird thought, and then just go on with my day. Then in my 20s, something happened in my brain. It was like a switch was turned on. I would have a weird thought and think, that's a weird thought, or maybe not. Maybe it's true. I can't prove it's not true, so I'll go with it. For Adam, his different thought about his weird thoughts changed his life. It marked the onset of OCD, and his life did not change for the better. Now, we don't know exactly what happens in the human body that explains this phenomenon that Adam described as a switch being turned on, but we're working on it. Let's take a different example. If you know somebody with bipolar disorder, you might observe that the first sign of a manic phase is extravagant spending. People with bipolar disorders have different thoughts about spending money in the middle of a manic phase of the illness. Well, it turns out that each of us, even those with neurotypical brains, has a biologic propensity to be either a spender or a saver. Scientists have identified genes that code for a biologic propensity to take risks or seek safety. And then you know that your brain operates differently, sometimes from day to day or moment to moment. You might think different thoughts if you're tired or hungry or overwhelmed. All right, so our biology shapes our thoughts, but our biology is not our destiny. Second, we also get thoughts that are shaped through childhood lessons. In a great book, Scientist in the Crib, the author describes the amazing capacity of babies to learn things. She says a baby's brain is a learning machine, and babies learn both through observation and through direct instruction. So your parents taught you the difference between good and bad, right and wrong. You may have been told that lying is bad and keeping promises is a good thing. You might have absorbed beliefs about how the world works. So we arrive into adulthood carrying our childhood lessons. Sometimes we just bring these parental lessons forward. Sometimes we go in the opposite direction. Beth said, I remember thinking as a child, when I'm a parent, I will never say the things my parents say to me, to my kids. And then she was horrified when those same banned words came out of her mouth in the heat of the moment with her own kids. As another example, consider the thoughts you absorbed in childhood about money. Your parents taught you about the nature of money. Is money good or evil? You were taught about the purpose of money. Is it there to help you enjoy a higher standard of living, or is it to help other people who are less fortunate? Then, as adults, these beliefs shape our behaviors around money. And these beliefs can stand in the way between a person's dream and their current reality. So, beliefs are nothing more than thoughts we think over and over again. All right, what else shapes your thoughts? Well, there's your peer group. As we become adults, we become members of groups. Often these groups are like-minded. They think similar thoughts. They act in similar ways. And now we can find virtual communities of like-minded people. We can construct a life in which we never have to confront somebody who holds different thoughts and beliefs than we do. Does this really matter? If you saw the final of the 2024 Olympic women's balance beam competition, you witnessed almost every athlete fall off the beam. How and why does this happen? Right after the event, the athletes said that they were distracted by the absence of music. They could hear themselves breathing. So were all of them just distracted and that impaired their performance? Possibly. But is it possible that simply by witnessing your peers fall off the beam, you are at greater risk of falling off the beam yourself? Did these athletes look at the beam and have the thought, the beam is cursed today? I don't know the answer, but I sure am curious. We also are exposed to marketing messages. All day, every day, we're bombarded with messages that try to persuade us how to think and how to act. If you just buy this thing or take this pill or have this experience, you too can have the perfect life. Then you go on social media and see physical evidence of an envy-inducing curated life. We have thoughts. This is what a good life looks like. My life falls short. We're exposed to messages that we come to believe are true, that our self-worth is tied to the number of likes or followers or even net worth. We get the message that we're only as valuable as what we can contribute. The thought, I can't trust myself, inspires people to crowdsource important choices. So racism and sexism and ableism are thoughts about people who are different, usually different than us. These prejudices, a class of thoughts, can be insidious. You might remember the uproar when talking teen Barbie said, "Math is hard." But then the president of Harvard University provoked furor by arguing that men outperform women in math and science because of the biologic differences between the genders. George Floyd's murder invited people into the question, could I be acting in a racist way even though I don't think of myself as a racist? The nature of these thoughts and beliefs is that we simply accept them as true. So why are these thoughts important? Well, here's the reason. Thoughts are important because they shape the lives we create. When we don't challenge our thoughts, our lives run on autopilot. We continue to create the same results no matter how much we want to change. One of the dangerous thoughts many people have, for example, is that it's dangerous or unsafe to feel certain feelings. Now look, no one wants to feel anxiety or pain or disappointment. One of the risks of competing in the Olympics is that you can fall from the balance beam and lose. But athletes are willing to lose for the opportunity to win. They have the thought, I can live through the experience of failing and not being on the podium for the opportunity to be on the podium. People with OCD have the thought, obsession-driven anxiety is intolerable. They will do anything to not feel that anxiety, including performing elaborate compulsions. Well, ERP offers evidence that anxiety will not kill you. You gather evidence that you can, in fact, live through anxiety. This thought leaves you more empowered to say no to the compulsions. You can have a new thought, I can live through any feeling, and lead an empowered life. Now, some thoughts get and keep you stuck in life. You might have the thought, well, I won't find a partner because no one wants to commit to somebody with OCD. Or, I'll never get my dream job because. These thoughts create feelings that inspire action that proves these thoughts to be true. But these thoughts are completely optional. In the next podcast, I'll offer some tips for uncovering your thoughts and share ideas about how you can identify and practice different thoughts that allow you to get the results you want. So thank you again for your listening ear and your commitment to yourself and to the people you love. Please leave a review. It will help others like you find this podcast and benefit from the ideas you're hearing. And if no one has told you yet today, I admire your courage. Managing OCD may be the hardest job I've taken on. Whether you're an OCD warrior or an OCD champion like me, you're not alone. There's hope for a better tomorrow. You got this.